Hey there. So this is the third module of how to avoid avoidance. And we have two objectives that we want to address in this module. And I also want to um, go over the activities that we have. So the objectives here are to learn how to collaboratively develop treatment goals, objectives, and effective interventions for avoidant behavior. So far, we've assessed our own individual practice or our group practice as far as rates of dropout, and other avoidance behaviors. We have then chosen a case of our own and developed centering the developed an assessment tool of centering the negative behavior that we want to address, the avoidant behavior that we want to address, and also the positive engagement that we want to see. So kind of the opposite of that. And then we've identified drivers to each of those behaviors. So what are the client, clinician, and client-clinician relationship drivers that are presenting barriers to engagement, and what are the strengths, resources, and benefits that are resulting from the client, the clinician, and the client-clinician relationship that we can engage to address those behaviors. So we're going to take a deeper look into that today. All right. So here is the assessment tool that we introduced in the last module, just reviewing that. And here again is a review of the clinician-related, client-related, and clinician-client relationship-related barriers, harms, and burdens. And so in assignment 2, I had you present a case and then develop the assessment tools. And I'm interested in understanding more about your particular case, and I'd also be interested if you would make some comments in the discussion board about those things that you've identified. I really have enjoyed learning from you all. Each case is unique, and there are avoidance behaviors and engagement behaviors that I haven't recognized. And so the treatment or the course material has been updated the more I learn from you all. So I just encourage you to share with me and the rest of the people that take this course your experiences with that assignment. So what we did in session, once I had developed this snapshot or assessment tool with Evan, is that I brought it in and I had reviewed all of the issues or the drivers that I had identified, just to clarify with him if that was what was going on, or if there was something that I was missing, or if I was off base in any way. And so after confirming that, and again, this isn't anything pretty, right? I do it right in session, take a blank piece of paper, or dry erase board actually is what I use in session. I put the behavior that we're going to talk about in the middle, and then I draw a circle around it, and I say, well, what is impacting this? And once we have a pretty good picture and we can't think of any more drivers, there could be some which we could add later. But what we want to do next is I want the client to give me a priority for each of the drivers that we've identified. So in other words, I don't mean if there's 5 barrier or drivers to the barrier or the behavior that we're identifying and focusing on. It isn't first priority, second priority, third, fourth, and fifth priority. It is, what does driver number 1, what is the priority? Is it a first order, second order, or a third order priority? Is it an A priority, a B priority, or a C priority? And do that with driver 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you could have, if you have 5 barriers, or drivers rather, you could have technically you could have 5 A-level or high priority drivers that you want to address. More than likely, however, though, the client themselves will focus in on a few of them that they feel are the most important. A way to explain this to them is saying, if there was any one driver that was removed, or if this driver in particular was removed, how much of this problem or this behavior would be resolved? And looking at that, does that make it higher priority, or you're not sure, or definitely not something that would really have much impact on, or something that you can't really do anything about. And so when I reviewed this with Evan, these are the A, B, and C priorities that he came up with as we talked through it. And you'll notice he had 2 A's, 2 B's, and just 1 C. And so I asked him then not to worry necessarily or focus on or think about the B's and the C priorities. I wanted him to look at the 2 A priorities that he had identified and said, is one more important or easily addressed than the other? And so this is what he came up with. Recognizing, just in our conversation during the session, recognizing and putting it together for Evan that, these behaviors or missed sessions or showing up late only started when we got into the desensitization and reprocessing phase. And it's interesting that he started a relationship that resembled in many ways the prior relationship that he entered into treatment to address. And so once he realized that he probably was avoiding triggers, and that resulted in avoiding coming to therapy and addressing the issues. So he chose that as his number 1 priority. And number 2, the priority that was second was the fact that he had started dating a young man that had a lot of similarities to the relationship that he had had for 4 years with Jamal. And so we just stopped talking about the other 3 drivers at that point, and we moved into the strengths, and we will do that next. So just reviewing a little bit, some of the strength-based approaches that we can use to developing interventions. We want to focus on empowering the individual, right? The client needs to feel and know that they are in charge in many ways in their own treatment. It is they who are choosing to be here, that are committing to do this work. It is hard work. We want them to feel empowered to make their own choices. We want to help them, collaborate with them, to give them choices so that they feel empowered to overcome their PTSD or traumatic stress related symptoms, and feel confident that they can do that in the future. Secondly, we want to review the initial goals that they came in with. And so once you review the goals with the client, you came in here to deal with your breakup that was pretty bad with a long-term relationship. And so now that we have identified why you might be hesitating to engage in treatment at this point, and the fact that that's really why you're here, it's easier to make the connection to why we're struggling and how it relates to, or what kind of motivation it is to push through this avoidance or figure out a way to address those barriers, because that's why you're here, right? Also, it's important to look at it from a multi-system perspective, right? We just don't want to look at the individual, what is the client experiencing, but what's going on around Evan. The fact that he started this new relationship is definitely an influence. Other things that are going on in his life, his job changed in September. Not that he changed jobs entirely, but his responsibilities at his job shifted, giving him new responsibilities, needing him to learn new skills, and taking up some energy throughout the day. And even though Tuesdays were his day off, the fact that he had already invested a lot of effort into learning new things depleted his energy or his focus. And so made him want to enjoy his days off more. So that was a contributing factor. So looking at the systems and also looking at the strengths that are available, Evan had a strong support system in his family of origin. And the fact that this new young man that he was dating that lived with his 80-year-old grandmother, the fact that although he was homeless, he had a place to stay for the time being, and Evan didn't have to rush to his rescue. He could take some time, recommit to therapy, and take a look at what does he really want to do, instead of just defaulting to that pattern of sacrificing his own needs for the sake of helping others. So these are some other reminders of what we might be able to do in our approach to helping the client feel empowered to address their avoidant behaviors. So we returned again then to the engaged behavior model next. And just as a review, Evan's factors of engagement that we discussed are here. And I again asked Evan to identify what are the A, B, and C strengths and assets that would help us in this particular situation. So not that the other strengths that he has are less important, but in this particular intervention, what are the things about Evan, about me, and about our therapeutic relationship that can contribute to driving this positive behavior as opposed to the barriers that we are experiencing. And as you can see here, Evan again identified 3 strengths that were top priority or most easily used to leverage success in this particular issue. So he chose that the fact that Evan continues to inform the clinician of his need for missing session and showing up late, right? So he didn't ever just no-show me and left me wondering. He would call and say, this is the reason why. So that caused us to take a closer look at why he was week after week not getting the most out of his therapy session, when for the past 2 months he had been attending regularly, learning things, was motivated. Why the sudden shift? And the fact that he didn't just blow it off, but he was contacting and in communication with me throughout the process was a strength that we could use. It kept the channel of communication open and at Evan's initiative. Another one is that Evan completes his homework. He feels like this is helping. He was able to say, because we worked on him measuring and observing what was going on in his own body and his own life, he was able to say confidently that his anxiety had gone down. his PTSD symptoms as it related to his past relationship had decreased, and his depressive symptoms had decreased as well. He was feeling more motivated and happier. So that was definitely a strength that we could engage in reducing the barriers to engagement. And thirdly, recognizing his pattern of being a helper. The fact that he recognizes it both as a strength and, if overused, it can be a hindrance to developing a healthy relationship. And the fact that he was able to identify this as this is a core value of mine, is that I help people, but realizing that he can tend to overextend himself and neglect his own needs for the sake of helping others, gave him the ability to step back and say, is this something that I want to invest in right now? Am I putting myself and my own needs as a priority? And so those were the three or four main strengths that we identified, mostly Evan identified, that would be helpful in getting him back engaged and doing the hard work of the desensitization and reprocessing phase of trauma treatment. So I think I just talked through a whole bunch of that stuff. I will just leave it here for a minute and look over at myself to see if we missed anything. But looking at his barriers on the left-hand side and his positive drivers to engagement behavior on the right-hand side. All right, so I think we had a little bit of a glitch there, but I think we took care of it. So this brings us to our last assignment before the post-test. And so in this assignment, it seems pretty obvious that we need to have you revisit your case example, look at the centering behavior tool that we developed in assignment 2, and create some interventions for how we are going to address the problem behavior of avoidance. And so essentially, I wanted to go back to Evan's case, for example. Essentially, the intervention was just talking about it and providing some psychoeducation, basic empowerment of what is it that you want to do. This is what you said that you wanted to do coming in. You are receiving some benefit from attending and from doing this hard work. So this is the next phase, and it's difficult. And is this a time that you want to commit to yourself and to help yourself? Do you want to continue this process even though it's difficult? And so the intervention itself was just talking through and pointing out what was going on, and in a way that built trust, and that demonstrated that it was Evan who had a choice. I was providing the information to obtain informed consent to continue with the evidence-based treatment towards his goals. And because he was becoming a good observer of what was going on in his body and in his life and in his thought processes, he was able to himself recommit to therapy. And what was interesting is a few weeks later, he had another doctor's appointment. And so instead of canceling, because it happened to be, the opening happened to be at the time of our regular session, instead of canceling, he contacted me right away and said, hey, this doctor's appointment is at our regular session time. Can you fit me in either earlier in the day, later, or in a different day this week, because I don't want to miss. And so that was a good sign. It was encouraging that he had really thought about what it was that he was doing and why he was hesitating to commit to therapy, even though on the surface, him missing 2 sessions and showing up to late to one seem legitimate on the surface. All right, so I want you to do that in assignment 3. And once again, I encourage you to either start a private conversation with me, start a discussion, or reply to the discussion posts. And once you download or put the assignment in the Dropbox, then I'm happy to review it and give you some feedback. All right, so the next module is the post-test module, and we'll just go through that next. All right.